Joining me now to discuss all of today's developments, and there's been some pretty good ones in the last hour or so, Miranda Devine, columnist at the New York Post. Miranda, good evening to you. Good morning where we are. So how do you make sense of what's happened over the last 90 minutes, the impeachment calls from Nancy Pelosi?
Good morning, Peter. Yeah, look, it's historic stuff, but the Democrats have been coming after Donald Trump with one scandal after the other since they lost the election in 2016. So we had the Republicans just come out and say that all the Democrats are trying to do is rerun the 2016 campaign. Donald Trump himself has said that, this is a gift to him for the 2020 election. And that he has nothing to hide. He's also promised to release a transcript of this phone call that's at the centre of these impeachment calls, and that is of a conversation that he had back in June with the head of Ukraine, and what is alleged by a whistleblower who didn't actually hear the conversation but was told about it third hand. This alleged whistleblower has said that Donald Trump did something untoward because he allegedly asked for or said that he would withhold military aid from Ukraine unless Ukraine helped with his re-election bid. That's what the Democrats are alleging. What Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani, his lawyer, have been saying for the last few days is that they have nothing to hide, that what Donald Trump did was above board. All he did was say to Ukraine when he had that conversation that why don't they have a corruption inquiry, and if they're doing that, because there is a lot of corruption in that government, they should look into Joe Biden and the activities of his son, who has, this is really a big scandal with Joe Biden's son, that he's got millions of dollars from foreign governments, from Ukraine and from China, after going and meeting with them, with his father, and he's received enormous amounts of money for working for foreign companies when he doesn't really have expertise in those companies. So Joe Biden says that there's nothing untoward there. Donald Trump says there's nothing untoward. We won't really know until the transcript of this phone call is released. But I think Nancy Pelosi today has bowed to the overwhelming feeling among especially the young Democrats like the AOC and the Squad that they go ahead with these impeachment proceedings. Whether or not it helps them in the election, who can say? I can't see that it will.
Well, I mean, it might even do the reverse, wouldn't you have thought, Miranda, because we are in an election cycle. So, the cynics will argue that this is politics 101 from the Democrats. They don't know how else to beat Donald Trump, so they're picking up this and then going with it. But, we've seen this movie before, and Donald Trump has survived impeachment before. Some would argue more serious calls for impeachment before. He survived all of those. Do the Democrats run the risk of having more critics turn on them?
I think so. If we see this transcript and it does turn out that the president didn't break any laws, then, he's perfectly entitled to talk to foreign leaders. He can do whatever he likes. He can, within bounds, he can take America to war. He has a lot of power in that office. So I just think that he's been in a defensive posture since he won the election. The Democrats have been trying to get rid of him. They've ginned up a whole lot of scandal after scandal. The last one, I think, was they said he was causing a recession. There was the Russia collusion hoax, which ended up coming to nothing. They seem increasingly desperate. Now, this will strengthen his base, who believe that he's under siege from the Democrats, socialists and the fake news media, so-called. But it may also strengthen the Democrat base and also those Republicans who are simply tired of the scandal and the circus that the White House has turned into.
Miranda, we've got about 60 seconds left. I'm wondering if you can give me a review. You've been on Scott Morrison's campaign trail, if we can call it that, over the last few days. How's he doing?
Look, he's done pretty well, and the state dinner was a real triumph for him and for Australia. I think he looked a little awkward when he was in Wakapanetta in Ohio helping Donald Trump open Australian billionaire Anthony Pratt's paper factory. He was up on stage. It basically turned into a mini election campaign for Donald Trump, and Scott Morrison was the prop. That was a bit awkward, but he salvaged it the next day with a really terrific speech to a Chicago organisation about free trade and saying that the rules need to be changed. They're outdated because China is getting away with being a major power and yet not having the obligations of being a newly developed country. It's still pretending that it's just a developing country. That was very good.
Yeah.